Why the gray rock method won't work on borderlines, narcissists, and other cluster B personality disordered people. Hi, this is Mike, and this is the One Thing That Heals BPD and NPD Abuse channel. And I share with you exactly what I did to completely gain my sense of self back and to heal completely from my relationship with my borderline girlfriend in my book called How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, which you can get on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com to see them there. So what is the gray rock method? There's that little gray rock, little boulder, little round boulder on the bottom that says, I'm gray rocking you. And then the giant gray rock boulder above says, I invented gray rocking and I will crush you. So what is gray rocking? Before we get into it, if you clicked on this, you already know, but I'll say it anyway. So gray rocking is this method that is supposed to work to disable the narcissistic abuser from being able to stimulate you, trigger you, control you, etc., etc. And the idea is that you become boring, you become unappealing to them, so that you don't give them any power. You don't give them any supply. So the idea is that when you react, when they come at you with whatever, they're controlling you, they're manipulating you, they're devaluing you, and you react from a rational emotional place, you get angry, you get hurt, or you try to interact with them, you try and meet their needs, or you try and battle with their manipulation or their ego. The idea is that gives them supply, and they keep coming back to you for that, either to devalue you or to get into the negative interaction with you, and that's what fuels them. So the idea is that being a boring gray rock, like you just sit there like a gray rock and you don't respond and you don't give them what they want, that then the theory is you will then become boring to them. They will lose interest in you and they will go somewhere else. So it's really about, it's a self-protection mechanism. But there's an assumption here. Bear in mind that we can't have any real discussion until we know what the assumption is. The assumption is that you have to interact with a narcissist. That's the assumption. So lots of times you'll see the title of these videos, the gray rocking technique for when you can't go no contact. And I'm here to tell you those videos are not helpful to you. I'm going to tell you the one instance where somebody has to interact with a narcissist. Are you ready? There's only one instance, and even then there are ways out of it. But the one instance that I will accept if somebody comes to me and says, I can't go no contact, is if they're under the age of 18 and they live in a household with narcissistic parents. And that would be the only thing that I would accept. And then if you tried pulling the gray rock method, then you're going to get your ass kicked. Because if you're living with narcissistic parents, you're not going to be able to wave off their narcissistic attacks on you. You're not going to be able to say, you know what, I don't have time to talk to you right now, I have other things to do. You're going to get the back of somebody's hand or some other devaluation or something like that. So even then, gray rocking doesn't really work. It's at best a survival technique for somebody who can't escape the narcissist. But again, that is an assumption. So who are the people who supposedly can't go no contact? If you have a family member, you have a mother or a father or a brother or a sister who's a narcissist or a borderline, supposedly you can't go no contact then. Here's the big one. What if you have kids with a narcissist? I mean, that brings up a whole thing right there. But you have, or borderline, you have kids with a borderline and you have shared custody. and you have to talk to them in order to, work out the custody details. I've seen already 5 or 6 videos where people are saying this. That's an assumption. The assumption is that there are certain relationships that you can't completely go no contact, and that's just not true. That is not true. The truth of the matter is that when it comes to gray rocking is a way for codependents to justify their unwillingness or their inability to leave destructive relationships. Now let's get to the efficacy of this. Again, I watched a video and somebody was doing a role-playing scenario where they were being a narcissistic mother and the gray rocking daughter, right? And so the narcissistic mother comes on the phone and says, "Hey, the makeup artist for the wedding has decided that they need to charge me more money because I've said they have to do more people. And so instead I fired them and I told your sister that you would do the makeup for them." And in one scenario, the person responds and knuckles under, supposedly not gray rocking. And then the gray rocking role playing, she was very completely empowered within herself. And she said, "I'm sorry, I can't really stay on the phone that long. And, that's between you and my sister. And, I can't do it. Sorry, I'm just going to show up. You guys are going to have to figure that out. Anyway, I got to go. Goodbye." Now, that is a really great way to respond to a narcissist. But the reality is, are you going to be able to do that? Because here's the other part of it. The assumption is, and here's your fantasy, the gray rock method contains within it a codependent fantasy, which is exactly that. It's a total fantasy almost all of the time. And the codependent fantasy is, I can keep this person in my life, my mother, my ex-girlfriend, my wife, my dad, my whatever. I can keep this narcissistic abuser in my life. I don't have to face the fear and the pain and the all-out just internal fright that I would have if I said to this person, "I want nothing to do with you, I am kicking you out of my life." So instead of doing that, because I can't tolerate conflict, being the good codependent, and I have to find a way where I can say, "No, I accept everybody for who they are," as the unicorns dance around your head and the flowers bloom and all of that. And this fantasy where you can be in a relationship with a narcissist and you don't ever have to get hurt and you never have to do or say anything that's going to piss anybody off. And if you just do the gray rocking method, what will happen is the borderline or the narcissist won't get mad at you. They'll just get bored and move on, which is nonsense. It just doesn't work like that. The only way a gray rocking method would work is if, number one, you honestly did not care what the other person thought. And that's not the case. If you're a codependent and it's your mom, your dad, if it's your ex, and you still want to have a connection with them, I already know, you don't even have to try and BS me with it. I already know that you are deeply connected and you have a strong agenda on wanting them to love you and you don't want them to hurt you. At the very least, you don't want to be the bad person and run away. You don't want them to say negative things about you. You don't want them to smear you. You don't want them to say things to your other family members or your friends or your kids, right? So it's nonsense to think that you are going to be that person who can not give a crap. Because not giving a crap means you literally don't give a crap. You want to say bad things about me? Go ahead. It doesn't bother me. You want to smear me to other people? Go right ahead. You want to talk smack to my kids? I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I am so empowered within myself that that I don't care. Now, not everybody can be like me. I actually am that way. But I also have very few people in my life. And, on my channel, you see me do that all the time. Somebody tries to start smacking me. I honestly don't care what you think. Come onto my channel, get them, do the work or don't, not my problem. I have no problem blocking you. But I was also that way throughout my life, even as a kid. When I left my home, now I didn't completely go no contact, but I decided I wasn't going to do any holidays with my family. I completely pushed them out of my lives, and people would come to me and say, "What are you doing? That's your mother. That's your, But I had this rule that I lived by, which was I was only going to have people in my life that earned it, which means people who treated me in a way that made me feel loved and respected. That means if you are a family member and you didn't live up to that standard, if you didn't treat me, in other words, if I was walking down the street and my brother or my narcissistic whoever walked up to me, my mom or my brother, and they weren't my relation, they weren't my blood relation. If they treated me narcissistically, the question is, would you have this person in your life? The answer is hell no, I wouldn't have this person in my life. So then if the only reason that you have these people in your life is because you're supposed to, because they're your family member, then you are by definition acting out of an incredibly codependent place, which means that you're not going to be able to gray rock them. So don't BS me with that. I'm going to gray rock them. Well, it's okay, I gray rock them all the time. No, you don't. I don't buy it. And if you're in a situation where you have to be with them, like it's a boss, or it's your mom or your dad, you're not going to get away with gray rocking them. You're not going to be able to say, listen, you know what? That's just not my problem. I got better things to do. I'm going to go in my room and play video games. Or your boss comes to you and gives you an unreasonable task and says, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. You're not going to say, well, then fire me. I don't care. No, you need that money. At least you think you do. So if you really want to live what the gray rock method supposedly gives you, then you have to be willing to get everybody out of your life that is narcissistic. And that is what I recommend. So when it comes to your borderline girlfriend, don't give me this crap about she's in the same city with me, she has the same friends as I do, we have kids together. Well, let's go over that one. First off, I can't go no contact because we have kids together. It's just not true. That's what lawyers are for. Lawyers, you can set it up so that the lawyer is the only person that interacts between you and your borderline. You have to set up times for kids. You tell your lawyer, here are the choices. These are the only choices you give her. These days or these days, this times, and that's it. Your lawyer interacts with her, gives her a couple of choices. And if she doesn't cooperate, guess what? You take it to a judge. But if you're telling me I have to interact with my borderline girlfriend because, we share kids together, and so I can't go no contact, this is let's stop, stop BSing me. This is an excuse for you to stay in contact with the person that you unconsciously want to please and you unconsciously want to be with. No, I don't. I don't want anything to do with her. Really? Then why did you have not one, but 2 or 3 kids? I guarantee you by the time, long before you had that first kid, but even if I give you the benefit of the doubt, I didn't know any better and then we had a kid. Oops, I didn't use any protection. Oops, she got pregnant. Oh, well, I didn't use a condom. Oops. I mean, even if I give you that, which is a bunch of nonsense, you chose to have multiple children with somebody you now know has a mental illness and is extremely destructive, and they gave you hints long before that. So before you start telling me about I can't have kids with them, well, you chose to do that. In your codependent narcissism, you chose to put yourself in that position because you either allowed them to pressure you or you thought that kids would somehow make the relationship work. I know you can't BS me on this because I've been where you are. Never had kids, but I understand the thought process there. So you get a lawyer. You don't like that? That's not my problem. Then feel free to be miserable and by all means try using the gray rock method and tell me how often it works. It's not going to work. It works with people in your life who are kind of narcissistic. You got that pain in the ass guy that you work with, and you've got maybe that sort of pain in the ass boss who tries to push the boundaries a little bit. And as long as you hold your boundaries, they'll back off and you can gray rock them. But when it comes to full-blown narcissist borderlines, that stuff doesn't work. like in this picture, they invented that gray rocking. You think you're going to be able to out gray rock the inventors of gray rocking? Who do you think invented that? Who is the one who's a master at saying, you know what, that's not my problem? You know, my borderline, I remember, you know, getting in one of those scenarios and she was all bent out of shape and I spent probably an hour, at least an hour, completely, totally focusing on her and her needs. And then she wiped the tears and felt better. And she said, okay, we'll leave. And I said, hang on, I'm exhausted. I need a little bit of attention. She says, I'm not going to stop everything just for you. I said, well, what are you talking about? I just did that for you. And she said, well, you know, that was your choice. If you wanted to give that to me and you chose to do that, that's great. But that doesn't mean I have to do the same for you. They are masters of gray rocking. They are masters of being, you know, disconnected and bored and not interesting and not wanting to give anything to anybody. They're masters of deflecting and, you know, gaslighting. What do you think gaslighting is? Gaslighting is the epitome of gray rocking. It's not my problem. You're the one that did that. So if you think you're going to out gray rock one of these people, you're out of your mind because they know your buttons. You're going to try it and you're going to say, you know what? I just don't have time right now. I only have a couple of minutes. And then before you know it, she's got, she's got a razor and she's getting ready to cut her arm. If you don't do what I want, do you really think that you're going to be able to do that? It's pure codependent fantasy. And so I'm here to tell you, I don't care if it's your mother, I don't care if it's your father, I don't care if it's your boss, I don't care if it's your ex with whom you have kids with. As I said, with an ex with kids, you know, first off, you should be talking to a lawyer trying to get custody, because the fastest way to create a borderline is to have a borderline mother. The fastest way. You should be working your ass off, taking responsibility for the fact that you chose out of your codependence to have kids with an extremely codependent, screwed up person. You chose to do that. You're now awakening to the reality of it, so you better take responsibility, get a lawyer, take him to court, and get custody. You can't do that? Great. Then you tell the lawyer, I'm only dealing with you. You get whatever that is, the restraining order so that they can't interact with you. You don't want to do that? I'm sorry that you're so codependent that you can't tolerate the thought of looking bad. I'm sorry that you can't tolerate the thought of having somebody be angry with you, because they will. They'll be angry with you. I'm sorry you can't tolerate the thought that their family and maybe even your family and friends won't understand why you've gone so completely no contact. But that's your wife. Those are your kids. I'm sorry that you don't like that. But if you want what I have, nobody messes with me. Nobody gets in my life that I don't allow into my life. And after my experience with this borderline, nobody's getting in here and causing me any damage. If you're in my life, it's because you earned it. And if I don't want you in my life, you're not in my life. And I don't care what you think or anybody else thinks. And it's because I care about myself. The other thing is, when it comes to going no contact, it is actually the kindest thing. Let's say it's your mother. That's a tough one, right? But I'm not going to even give you that one, because my mother was narcissistic as well. And I ended up going no contact with her, no contact with my brother. I did that my whole, almost my whole adult life. So your mother's narcissistic. Great. You go no contact with her. Here's what you tell your mother. Listen, Mom, I love you, but you're toxic to me. You're narcissistic and you're toxic, and I don't want you in my life. If you want me in your life, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to therapy. And after you've been in therapy for a while, I will meet you in the therapist's office, and together we will talk about reestablishing contact. But she'll never do that. Well, then good. You won't ever have to deal with it. Again, just because they're your mother, your father, your ex, you deserve to have people in your life who treat you with respect and treat you with love. And if they're not willing to do that, they don't deserve to be in your life. So stop giving me this half-assed gray rocking BS. It is something that was made up by codependents who couldn't tolerate the thought of looking bad, looking mean. They couldn't tolerate the thought of not having that borderline or that narcissist in their life, because on a deeply unconscious level, they still want to fix them and get them to love them. And until you realize that's never going to happen, then you're going to continue to put yourself in situations, and that gray rocking method, they will crush you. You're that tiny, well, that smaller round boulder, and that huge boulder will just decide to fall on top of you and crush you, and it'll happen every time. If you want to do what I've done, you're listening to me and you say, I can't possibly do that. Of course you can't. You are trapped in what I call a trauma pause. You're trapped in that. And that is a very real thing. You need a method that will give you the ability to do what I can do very easily. And that is, go get my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. In that book, at the end, and I recommend that you wait until, read the whole book, get to the end. And at the end, I tell you exactly what to do so that you can be completely free of the narcissist or the borderline, and you can be completely cured of the pain of that relationship. And in my experience, if you don't do that, if you want to try this half-assed, keep them in your life, but gray rocking them, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. Don't believe me? Go ahead, give it a try. Come back to me in 5 years and tell me that your life, that you've got complete, total control over your reality, and that you're not still totally screwed up by their craziness and your inability to detach. I dare you. Every single person that has followed my instructions to the letter, every single one of them have come back to me and said that I saved their life, that they now have the ability to live the life that they want, and they're no longer traumatized at all by the relationships of these very destructive and abusive and sadly very damaged people. If they get therapy, that's a whole other deal. That then you can try gray rocking with somebody who's been in DBT therapy for 10 years. It might work. All right, so How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can also go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. If you want to check out my other channel, thunderwizard.com, you can hear about some crazy spiritual stuff that may or may not interest you. You can go there as well. But definitely get the book. I recommend it. It saved my life. And I guarantee you, if you do what I suggest, it can save yours as well. It might even save your kids' lives. That's it for me. See you guys next time. But I'm gray rocking you. You're supposed to stop bothering me now.